You're listening to The Preferred Way, a retirement podcast brought to you by Preferred Trust Company, the preferred custodian for all alternative investments.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Preferred Way. I'm Chris Trembley, Director of Operations, and today joining me is Christina Ramirez. She is our Client Service Supervisor for Preferred Trust Company. Thanks for joining us today,
Absolutely.
Christina. So Christina deals with all things client services, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. And so today we're going to talk about, is your current custodian failing you? And some of the challenges we face when we're looking to transfer assets from one custodian to another. Mm-hmm. So you deal with it all on the front end of things. So I think one of the things I kind of want to know from you is, what is the tone out there of, obviously we're transferring from other self-directed custodians. We're transferring from big box companies, the Charles Schwab's, Edward Jones's. Those seem to be a little less painful than the ones that are within our industry in the self-directed world. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. When a client's transferring from one of those big box companies, typically what they're moving over is just cash, because we can't accept the assets that are that those big companies like a Fidelity or Charles Schwab hold. So when we submit our transfer request, it's ready to go. They've got cash in there, it's sent over, and those typically happen within a couple of business days. On the other hand, when we're transferring from another self-directed custodians, a lot of the times we're clients moving assets, and that can take quite a bit more time. And I think a reason for that taking more time is these self-directed custodians, to me, just in my experience with them, they seem to be a little less organized. They don't really have their finger on the pulse of their clients and their assets and what's in their IRA. And then when it's time to transfer them, it seems to be a bit of a scramble. And then the client is on the other end waiting, and we're waiting. And a lot of times we have a hard time even getting in touch with them.
So, yeah, I think that's interesting. You have the end of it of the client who's trying to move their account, who's trying to reach someone, maybe their client representative, trying to get the assets over to us. And then you have our side of it, who we're trying to help the client get their, and so we have a lot of the similar experiences, though. What are some of the complaints that we're hearing from clients when they're trying to do this?
Well, first off is that they can't ever get a representative on the phone, either answering the phone or calling them back if they leave a voicemail, or even responding to email sometimes, which I can confirm I have the same issue. Yeah. When we submit a transfer request, our team, our transfer department, reaches out after we submit it to ensure that the other company, the other custodian, has received it, to ensure everything's in good order, just to stay on top of things. But some of the time, we can't even get through to them, or they tell us they won't communicate with third parties, have the client reach out, and then the client will reach out and they can't get them on the phone. So it's like their transfer's in limbo. Sometimes we don't even know if they have the transfer. It's a communication problem.
I find it very interesting. Like, since we opened our doors in 2007, we've always had the same process for outbound transfers. So if we're sending somebody's assets out, our requirements have never changed.
Right.
It's always been the same. It's very standard, and we process through the same way. But what I see, and sometimes when I hear from you all, is that it's all over the board with. And then they lose it, or they can't. Their requirements are crazy. So what are the biggest challenges for us when it comes to the titling of assets and finding assets to begin with? And
I have had this experience recently because there have been some self-directed custodians out there that have merged together. Some of 3 of them have merged to one. And when that happens, what I'm finding is the assets that clients have are not titled correctly. Sometimes the clients don't know who their custodian is after a merger. I've had that experience with them a lot, and they say so-and-so holds my assets, and that's not even where they are. So when they ask them to send me a copy of whatever they're sending, sometimes like a promissory note, I will see that it's been transferred a couple of times incorrectly.
So no amendments when it's been transferred?
Exactly.
No. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. The promissory note is still at the beginning and it's moved XYZ, but it doesn't reflect that. So then we kind of have to backtrack because we're a very compliant company and we're not going to accept assets like that.
Yeah,
so that aren't
properly.
titled correctly.
Right.
So we have to sort of backtrack and work with the client to get them titled correctly so that we can actually make the transfer. And I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of organization and the lack of communication these other custodians have with their clients.
So it's interesting you mentioned promissory notes, but we've had that with properties where they haven't been titled correctly and they've actually maybe moved from, previously before us moved a couple custodians and no new deed has been created.
Right.
And we're at a loss there. There's not a whole lot we can do if it hasn't moved through because that original custodian may not even be around anymore.
Right.
So what do we do in those situations?
I know that I have recently worked with a client who had, it was the same situation. They have a deed a property they needed to move over. And when I saw the documents, we had to go back and get it re-recorded in the proper county. And then we can transfer it and then re-record it. And it's costing the client time. It's costing the client money. And the other custodian, even though it's in their custody, is really not doing anything about it. We're the ones doing the legwork.
They didn't have the deed to begin with.
They didn't have it to begin with.
Yeah.
I don't think they ever checked it. I don't think they've got compliance in checks and balances in place to assure that, okay, we're accepting this asset and we have completed everything we have and we can move forward. I don't know that they're doing that, but we're doing that. And the client should be assured that when you move your asset here, when the time comes to move it somewhere else or it's matured, it's going to be correct.
Absolutely.
We make sure up front that it's done. So at the end of the client's investment, there's no issues. It's seamless and they can take their money and move forward or reinvest whatever they want to do.
Yeah, because I'm imagining if the property isn't titled correctly, what if they go to sell it, right? And then you're working with the title company and the title company's like, the deed's not even in the correct name. Like it can slow down. It could even mean the loss of a sale, if the buyer is not willing for all these corrections to be done.
Yes.
So it's a big deal.
And the client doesn't even know.
Right.
Isn't even aware that all of these issues are there and they're thinking they have this deal, they want to move their assets, whatever the reason is, and they can't do it. And it's very frustrating for us because we're trying to help the client with an issue that we didn't create.
Correct.
And they can't get the person who created the issue to help them out.
Right. Well, they might be long gone.
Yeah, that's true. They might not even be around anymore.
I think it's always interesting when we do have to go through those corrective actions and things like that. Time is money, and clients can absolutely lose out on potential investments and that type of thing. And the other thing is, I think clients have to be a little bit more diligent. I think the important thing is learning that when you make an investment, you want to have copies of all of your investment docs.
Right.
Yes. And for us, we make sure when a client is making an investment that the client reads every document and signs off, initials the documents as read and approved before we'll ever sign them. Because that's an important step, And so I think sometimes some of these other clients, or some of these other custodians let clients just sign the documents for themselves. I noticed that sometimes it's in the client's personal name, or it could be in the name of the IRA, but then it's attached to the client's personal Social Security number. Oh my gosh, what huge error that can cause. Yes, terrible. We're talking about taxation problems. There's big issues out there. So tell me a little bit about so how long are the wait times? I sometimes I'll look and y'all are on the phone for you're doing a million other things and listening to some music on hold.
Yes, the hold music.
The hold music. What's the longest hold time you've seen?
I have been on a call where they tell you the whole time is 60 minutes and I've waited 60 minutes and they haven't picked up.
Oh my gosh.
Some of them will keep you on hold just for a couple of minutes and then ask you to leave a voicemail to get a return call, and I don't get a return call. It's frustrating.
I once called a custodian to try and help a client. And the voice message, the outgoing voice message from the other custodian was, we don't allow you, for efficiency, we don't allow you to leave a message. Just email us. I was thinking, wow, okay.
Wow.
And then it just like cuts off. And there was nothing. So yeah, there's also that. So tell me, I think, like you mentioned, the disorganization and the lack of communication. I'm guessing some of that might be because they're actually not all at the same location.
Yes, that's a good point. I think after COVID, a lot of people did not return to the office, and still, even 5 years later, still work from home. And just in my department, I know that I don't understand how that works, because me and my team are constantly communicating. We have a client service team. Some of us work on investments. Some of us work on accounting. I work in the front end with onboarding clients and helping them with their transfers. But we always communicate with each other, because at some point the client's going to run through each department.
Correct.
So I feel like being verbal, outspoken, hey, this is the issue I'm having with this client, is good to talk amongst yourselves, so they kind of know the situation when that client eventually comes into their, their department. But if half of my team was working at home, and I just don't see how any processes can be done fully. There's no communication. Here's an example. We process outgoing transfers with a company that we've processed outgoing transfers with many, many times. And almost every single time, it's not correct. They don't send us the correct documentation, even though we have told them, I don't know how many times,
I think I know
what's
who
required,
you're talking about.
what's required, what needs to happen. And then when they reach out for an update, which we, respond in a timely manner, and we let them know, no, XYZ didn't happen. I just don't know what happens to that email. What happens to that correspondence?
Right.
You would think, oh, this is preferred trust requirements. We should document that.
Sometimes it's even the same person from that company.
Sometimes it's even the same person.
Yes, that you've told.
I think we know.
Yes, I think we do. It's very interesting, and yet they claim to be a supervisor or a manager or customer care specialist. I'm like, what kind of care is this? Like, you're obviously not caring.
You're not caring, because if you cared, you wouldn't have to ask the question twice.
Right.
I returned a call to a custodian just last week about a client, and I gave them all the information, and I went over, answered all of their questions. The next day, I get a call from a different person at the same custodian with the same questions. So I don't understand.
Happened to that conversation?
Where's that conversation? Are they not documenting it? It's frustrating.
It's so frustrating.
It's frustrating. On our end, we're very good with documentation. We document all of our phone calls.
I think the point, too, is we've had the same, we do update our processes here and there, but for the most part, we've not changed our requirements from a compliance standpoint. So it's not like every other day we're telling these companies, well, today we want it this way, but tomorrow we'll want it this way. We're very standard in everything we want.
That's right.
So it's surprising when they can't get it right.
When they can't get it right.
For the 10th time. Yeah, for the 10th time. So let's talk a little bit about, so obviously we know some of the challenges that come with assets not being titled correctly. But then you have cash investors that are wanting to make a change because they are feeling like they have not received the best possible customer service where they are. They have maybe the custodian's not acting in their best interest as far as the efficiency behind the transactions that the client is trying to make. And I noticed that sometimes even cash takes a while from those in our industry. These clients are losing out on potential investments, right? Because their cash isn't here.
Right.
So, and also the investment sponsor who's offering the investment is, they have deadlines as well.
Right.
And when we can't get that cash moved, they're missing out on capital.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. On raising capital. So all around, it's very, you have to do your due diligence, I think, is super important. So customer service, I think, from the point of your individual client who's opening the account, and, investment sponsors who's working, maybe sending a majority of their clients to a single particular custodian, should also be doing their due diligence.
Absolutely.
Right? Because in the end, as the investment sponsor, you are standing behind this custodian or self-directed IRA company telling your clients you work with them, but then the customer service that is happening. It makes the investment sponsor look bad sometimes.
It does.
You know.
Yeah, it can.
In essence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of the clients, they kind of don't understand the difference between a custodian and an investment sponsor. And I think that goes back to when they're setting up their account, that conversation needs to be had. This is who we are. This is who you're making your investment with. I try to be very clear up front with the client so they understand. And even
separate entities,
separate things.
We are not licensed to give investment advice or to make investments. And those other companies, a lot of times, these investment sponsors are particular offering particular types of investments. They're acting in the capacity of a custodian. They're misrepresenting.
Yeah, they misrepresent themselves.
Exactly who they are. And in the end, that makes so much confusion for the client.
It does. Specifically, I would say with precious metals. When clients invest in precious metals, there's three entities that are involved. There's your IRA custodian, there's your precious metals dealer, and there's your depository. And they're three separate for a reason.
Correct.
They have to be separate like that.
That's right.
But sometimes the clients make their investment. They come to their custodian through their precious metal dealer. They're referred over there. But I don't think it's made clear to them that this is your IRA and this is your custodian holding your IRA. And we as your precious metals dealer have nothing to do with that. We're only handling your investment.
Only handling your investment to the point that the only thing they're doing is buying
and selling.
That's it.
That's all they can do through a precious metal dealer.
That's correct.
And then those metals, a lot of the clients think that Preferred Trust holds your IRA.
We're storing them.
So we're also storing your metals.
No.
And no, that's not how it works.
No, we don't have a basement that we're storing.
No.
We don't have space for that type of work.
Some of our clients think we might.
Yes.
Think we have them in the back closet,
Yes.
but
No.
they have to be put into a depository. And sometimes with the clients, they don't understand that.
Yeah.
So if they're coming to us directly, or even if they're referred to us from one of our company partners or a precious metal dealer, I try to just have the conversation, make sure they understand these are three separate entities. You're going to get billed for your depository, but it has to be paid through your IRA. I just try to make them understand that. If they have a question about their precious metals, reach out to your dealer. But about your IRA, reach out to us. I think some of them do get it. Some of them, they don't really understand, but it's on us to be patient and to make sure that we clarify it for the client and make sure we walk them through everything so that they're, at the end of the call, they at least have an understanding.
Yeah, I think that's super important is the onboarding call that we do when a client comes over. And the first thing I think is interesting too is if an investment sponsor doesn't want you having contact with the client should run. Yeah. Run as fast as you can and as far away as you can because there's something behind the reason why they don't want you talking to the custodian. Yeah. As an IRS regulated company, we follow federal rules and regulations when it comes to retirement accounts. We are super compliant.
Yes.
And those calls are necessary. Know your client. That's that's a big thing for us. And so if you're getting the feeling like you're not being told exactly who's holding your metals or you're thinking that the dealer is holding your metals, oh boy, you need to run far and fast.
And a problem I think is that because, like you said, they do misrepresent themselves and they try to, they're salespeople.
Of course.
They're salespeople and they're going to use all of the tools in their tool belt to sell.
Correct.
Whatever it is they're trying to sell their metals, to sell the IRA, even if they're not the one selling it.
Correct.
So it is important to do your due diligence. Even if you got off the phone call and it felt great, this was a great conversation, I'm so happy, I still think it's important. Go to the website, go to the custodian's website, do your research, look at reviews. The reviews are so important.
Well, I think that's interesting too that you said, it's not just doing your due diligence about the investment sponsor, but again, like we started this conversation on, is about the IRA company.
Yes.
First of all, are they licensed and regulated? Not all of us are in the industry are created equally. Mm-hmm. There are administrators out there, self-directed IRA administrators. They are not licensed custodians. Right. There's probably a custodian behind them somewhere, but the ones that you're talking to on the phone, the ones that you're filling out your paperwork with, they're not regulated in any way, shape, or form. So you want to make sure you know who you're working with, no matter what type of investment that you're making. And like you said, we encourage people, look at the reviews.
Yeah, look at the reviews, ask the questions.
Ask the questions.
When was your company formed? Are you licensed administrator? ask the questions.
Yes.
A lot of times they don't know the questions to ask also, but just if you are concerned, if you have a weird feeling.
And you can call us. We'll
just
talk
call
to you
us.
about
We'll
it.
talk to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to make sure the client is making the best decision for them, even if that's not going to be at Preferred Trust. We want to make sure that they're doing their research and they're going to make the best decision for their financial future.
For sure.
Yeah.
So reviews, I know that's a big thing for us. Obviously,
Yes.
a service company, we don't sell a product, we sell our service.
Right.
So the reviews, how do we handle not so good reviews?
Well, we encourage our clients to leave us reviews, honest reviews, good or bad. We want the feedback. If we get a review that's less than stellar, we take that. We read what the clients say. We address if there's an issue, and sometimes we'll implement changes if they need to be made. So
Yes.
if you have a negative review, obviously nobody wants to get negative reviews, but we're going to reflect and see, why did this client leave this review? We're going to respond. We respond to all of our reviews, all of our clients who leave reviews, good or bad or otherwise, because we appreciate it.
Yep.
And I think
and you look at reviews when you go someplace and you
absolutely.
You want a new restaurant, or you look to see what other people are saying, right? And also how the company responds to the not so good reviews.
Absolutely.
Right.
This is funny because I just was speaking to my husband and he was looking on eBay to purchase something, and he was telling me, I found this person and it looked great, but I looked and he didn't have any reviews, so I didn't use them. And that's true for everything. When you go out to eat, if you've never been there, you're going to look at Yelp and you're going to see, what are people saying. If you look on Amazon and you have products, you're going to compare the reviews. It's no different. It's no different for us.
And it's so much more important too when you're dealing with, this is your retirement.
This is your money,
right?
Yes.
This is your money, your finance. This is how you're going to live the rest of your life. So don't take it lightly. Take as much time as you would, more time to read the reviews and look at all the information about the company. Is there any litigation going on with the company?
Yes.
Have they ever been part of an investigation? All of that is so important.
Even just take a look at their website. If the website looks kind of bare bones, that could be an indicator. If you take a look at Preferred Trust website, it's very robust. Very robust. There's a lot of depth to it. There's a lot of education. There's a lot of podcasts. I've been on some custodians' websites
Not so good.
It's just a homepage and an email address, and that would be concerning. I wouldn't want to put my money into a company that doesn't even put their effort into their website.
And we get sometimes we joke about and it's very rare, yet it should be more, I think. We get clients that'll send us emails and ask questions about, well, how are you regulated? And what state do you hold your license in? What type of license do you hold? And those are such important questions.
They are.
Sometimes wish I could take those clients and go, okay, now speak to the rest of the world about this. And I don't mind answering those questions because they're important. We encourage, we are licensed in the state of Nevada by the Financial Institutions Division, and we are happy when they reach out to the commissioner or to the division to find out, we get examined every year. Go and look at our examination results. Look at if there were any concerns. These are big things. Sometimes, I think sometimes customers might look at, we all probably do this in our life, whatever. We compare cost,
Yes.
We price shop, where am I going to get the best deal? So getting the best deal doesn't always mean you're getting the best service.
Correct.
Right? So, and we always say we are not the least expensive in the industry. Right. We are certainly not the most expensive, but we are priced right for our services. And I think that peace of mind, knowing that, you're at night, you can sleep at night knowing that your assets are protected is the most important.
It's worth it.
It's worth it.
Maybe paying a little bit more for your custodian. Yeah, I like to tell clients, we encourage you to shop around, to look at other custodians, ask questions to other custodians, and you might find ones that are cheaper. Right. But just remember, you're always going to get what you pay for.
And you should call them. Call them and see how long it takes them to answer the phone.
That's true.
Or return your voice message. Yeah, we like to secret shop sometimes too. I love to do that. So what would be your recommendation, Christina, if you've got a client out there, maybe someone who might be interested in opening a self-directed IRA, hasn't done it before, or maybe has an account somewhere else with another self-directed custodian and is thinking about moving out. What are your recommendations? What are some of the things you would tell them?
Just like what we've talked about, doing your due diligence, doing all your research, asking the questions. But if you don't know the questions that you need to ask, give us a call.
Yeah.
Give Preferred Trust a call. Let's have a conversation. Even if you don't end up moving here, it's good to give the client a peace of mind that they've got their questions answered.
Yes.
And maybe they want to stay with their current custodian, or maybe they want to move over, or maybe they want to sell and move somewhere and start buying stocks. But you have to have a conversation. You have to talk to a representative, ask all your questions. A lot of them I don't think do. I think maybe they open an account, send their money, make their investment, and then that's it.
Well, I think sometimes they throw their statement. They'll get one statement, they'll throw it in the drawer and never look at it again. Right? And then when it gets time to, then when something does happen, the last statement they had might have been from 5 years ago. You know,
Right.
I mean, we see that a lot.
We do.
Right?
We see that often.
We see that often.
So it is important to keep, I mean, it's your money. Like,
Right.
keep up with it. Keep track of it. Know what fees you're paying. Know why you're paying those fees and what you get for those fees.
And most of the time, most of us have online portals
Right.
that you can get into. Just take a look once every 30 days.
Just take a peek.
You know, just
If
take a
something
peek.
looks
That's
off,
right. Ask the question.
Ask the question.
Right.
Asking questions is so important.
Yeah, definitely. Agreed. Well, thanks. It's been very interesting
Absolutely.
today. I like the stories. I like hearing all, I see it all, you know, but I do like going back and talking about
Yeah.
them. And if you're out there and you're interested in opening an account with Preferred, or you just need some assistance, have some questions, give us a call. You can always visit our website at preferredtrustcompany.com. And then join us next time for another edition of The Preferred Way.
Thanks for joining us for another episode where retirement savers meet alternative investments. Can't wait for the next episode to learn more? Visit our website at preferredtrustcompany.com.